connecting volunteers with local nonprofit projects. More at handson.unitedwaygreaternashville.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. The queer community faces the same kind of changes to intimacy, romance, and our own bodies as we age. But some of the hurdles are unique, as you can imagine, and maybe you've experienced. As we'll hear in this episode, it's become rather common for people to come out later in life. We have a guest who did that herself and now specializes in coaching people through that sensitive stage. We also have a guest today who's undergone a gender transition in her 70s after the passing of a spouse. We start, however, with simply growing older as a gay couple. NextAge Season 2 examines intimacy as we age. It's made possible in part by the West End Home Foundation and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. And, growing older as a gay couple got a little chuckle out of Dwayne Jenkins over here. Why does that seem funny? I mean, it kind of, yeah, I get it.
Hey, Blake. Hey, everyone. Good to be back. It just made me giggle because...
He's not old, y'all.
No, I'm not old. Just the big 6-0. So I'm right there at the 60.
All right, tell me about 30-30-30, because I know you talked to Tasha F. Limley before this, and I had not tried to do the math on all the years that you might have been here and there, but what does 30-30-30 mean to you and what you're celebrating right now?
Oh, okay. So this year is a 30-30-30 thing I put on Facebook, and the first 30 was for the creation and development of Brothers United Network, which is the Black gay organization that I founded and 501c3 that hosts the annual Nashville Black Pride celebration.
Yeah.
So
30. All right, there's
United,
130.
That's 30. That's 130. The second 30 is for my relationship with Nathan. So we're getting in our 30th year together. So we're really excited about that. And then the last one is my 30th year anniversary at Nashville Cares.
Wow.
As staff, yes.
So you've been on staff at Nashville Cares for 30 years.
Yes. I've actually was a volunteer 2 years before I became actual staff. So it's actually 32.
So much has changed in that time. I mean, HIV prevention has gone from... Well, I mean, it's got the medicine, the technology has gotten so good. It's very much a livable disease now.
Right.
And yet in the 90s when you got going, I imagine it was a darker time.
Totally different, but it was different enough to be something that people were listening to at the time.
I see.
So that's why we created Brothers United, to get the word out to that specific population of Black, gay, and bisexual men or same gender loving men. At the program at Nashville Care. So that was a way to get everything started. And here we are 30 years later.
Well, I missed saying this. If you'd like to watch today, we are streaming live at youtube.com/@WPLN. And, Dwayne wore this beautifully loud shirt for you. It makes me wish I'd worn a loud shirt today. But, if you know and love Dwayne, give him a shout out in the chat there. We love that. And I'll get it to him here on the air and make him feel weird. Here, I'll start with this weird question. 30 years with Nathan. We're keeping things, PG-13 here.
Yes,
but
yes.
how has intimacy changed for you over 30 years? I mean, it changes for all couples. Tell us,
It's always been interesting because being in the field that I am, I'm always talking about safer sex and always having condoms and all kind of other devices. And so when you're a prevention education, director, you're going in, you're showing people how to use condoms, showing people how to do everything. So he was always sort of invested in going, okay, here we go again with whatever things you're bringing home.
I see.
Just whatever's new.
Oh, it almost sounds like part of your work.
It was work. It was homework. Which we used to do with a lot of the volunteers at the time. We were like, hey, there's this new, not device, but this new condom out or this new something here. Please try it and let us know what you think so that we can order more, because at Nashville Cares Out, we give it away free. Yeah. So having that, it was always very interesting because the dynamic was always there, to do all of that. So
I hadn't thought about that. You and your husband would just maybe have more conversations about sex than a lot of couples would, because it's kind of your job.
It's my job. And whether, again, in the earlier parts, you didn't really have to worry about, well, not worry, but you didn't have to think about social media as much. Because if I did a presentation, people were just looking at it and laughing and having a good time. Because usually when I present, I'm doing it in a very easy, because it's a hard topic to talk about.
Certainly.
And then when you're talking to people's children and different things, you always have to make sure you're doing things, within reason. And so, but now, some of the later things I've done, sometimes people will take out their phones. I'm like, don't
get me on tape
don't
like
get
this.
Me on tape. Either talking or doing demonstrations or doing different things. So it's a little bit different now. But earlier it was funny. And then he would be like, okay, what did you do this year? What did you do not this year? What did you do this day? Or something. So it's very funny.
Well, how have you found in this sort of maturing time? I mean, a 30-year relationship is a long time.
Yes.
Does it mean you all know each other better, and your schedules, your wants, your desires, like, does it mean like sex is kind of less physical, more spiritual? We've heard some of that this week. What about you and Nathan?
I think it's a combination of all of it. So probably now it's probably more spiritual. I mean, it is physical, of course, but it's got to be the time when you feel up to it now, when it's just like, oh, hey, intimacy comes in different ways. Comes in lounging around, comes in going to the movies, eating, doing all the other things.
Yeah.
And then it's a little bit different because you see the person every day,
For 30 years.
For 30.
Tell me, this is just my own curiosity.
Sure.
As a straight man, do you get targeted as much as straight guys do for medication to help with arousal? Or is that just I can't tell you how many places I'm getting hit with this pill. You could get this. Oh, you could order this discreetly. Is that?
That's absolutely.
Really?
That would be a yes. Again, in the field and doing, safer sex and HIV prevention education, that's part of it. So if people are getting older, having these enhancing pills and different things, that's part of the whole community, whatever community, whether it be straight or queer communities. They're always talking about enhancement, whether it's body, looking how your body's going to look, or these other pills. One of the commercials, and I forget the brand, of course I'm not going to mention it here, but it always kills me when they say, and your wife will like it too. And it's like, what if you don't have a wife? It's kind of funny when you're doing that, but you still get targeted in that way. Yeah. Where you're like, okay, they're talking to us as well when they're talking about those.
What about the body? And I don't, in almost just like an attractiveness sense. I mean, what kind of discussions do you see going on amongst your peers who are, in their 60s, got gray hair, and trying to come to grips with how their body looks now?
A lot of friends and loved ones are just going with the flow nowadays.
All right.
They're really just, with my set of close friends and people that we go on the retreats and different things with, everyone's just gracefully moving toward their goal. We all have goals of maybe wanting to lose weight or do some other things, but everyone's sort of working it in. It's more with the group of friends I have, more about presentation of, let's say, clothes and your nails and just things like that you're looking. Like you said, I wore a bright shirt today. It's just trying to look there and not really worry about the body shape.
Style.
Yeah.
You've worked to prevent and treat HIV for basically your entire career. And I wonder, have you seen as, let's say your peers age, that maybe there's been less vigilance in terms of, prevention?
Not less vigilance for prevention, but probably, good question. I think people, because we're in a different time where there's PrEP, where there's PEP, all these different things.
In other words, medication you can take that actually would prevent it before you contracted HIV. Is that how that works?
Yes,
right? Okay.
Yes. For pre-exposure prophylaxis. And then with the advancement, as you said earlier, with HIV, it's not as prevalent as people mind and thinking about it. I mean, so depending on the person, of course, hookup culture is the same. It's not up or down. It just is what it is.
But does hookup culture wane as one ages in your community?
No, a lot of times it gets more depending on if people are single.
I see.
So for most people, for my friends who are single, they are really like out there and, having a good time,
Yeah.
which is great for them.
So I wonder, though, I guess there's maybe been a bit of a mindset change there because HIV is just simply not as, I don't know if dangerous is the right word as it once was, but it seems fair. What about younger guys who they didn't go through the AIDS epidemic, really?
Right. And that's been one of the things that we continually try to make sure we stay with the trends, if you want to say, to make sure that we're capturing the younger generation, whether it be from between that 18 to 30 range, is trying to not scare them, because that's not going to work nowadays. It's 2026. They're like, I'm not scared of anything, mostly. But at least to educate them to go, hey, these are the things you do if you're going to get physical with someone. Make sure, one, you have a doctor if you can do that. And then trying to make sure they have the the routes to get tested, so they'll come to Nashville Cares or they'll come to Cares 360 Clinic. They can get, STI panel, do all the other things they need to do. And then if they find someone, they'll know what to do because we would already have that information for them.
We've got a fascinating man on the show Monday who, like a lot of folks that I've known in my own life, got married to a woman quite young. Essentially his church essentially taught him that was the way, had kids, then eventually came out, couldn't live a lie anymore. I wonder how you've helped guys navigate that really difficult transition.
It's during the times when, hopefully, if they come across our threshold into the office to get tested, just to get a test, that's the moment you can get them. So you only usually have about 15, 20 minutes with them, depending on if they're coming in on their lunch break or between school and classes or whatever, what's been really beneficial for me is that maybe I have that face that's just like people just...
You have a warm, welcoming face. It's true. If you're not watching on YouTube, I'll just take my word for it.
So they'll be able to express their story, and sometimes they haven't been able to do that to someone who's a stranger who will just listen to them. And then you're saying, okay, so this is what you're going to do. This is what, we suggest you do from this point on to take care of yourself mentally, physically, and spiritually. This is the sort of the ways to do that.
So even in Nashville Cares, you would go beyond just saying, okay, medically, if you are having physical relationships with other men, let's say that's the case, You're going beyond just saying, here's how to do that safely. What do you advise them on the sort of spiritual side and
the
mental
advisement
health?
is depending on each story is different. So depending on if they do have a religious background or not, depending on, what kind of relationship they are in with their partner. So if they have a wife, what happens if you tell her? What happens if one of your children also happens to be, within the LGBTQ plus spectrum? What do you do then? And just try to have that conversation. And a lot of the other folks at Cares have been there, at least 10 plus years. So I'm the senior one who's been there the longest. But that's one of the things that we are really proud of, because people can come right back to me. They may not remember the name. And at one point, if you remember, I had really long locks. So they'll go, the guy with the long locks.
Right. Not anymore.
Not anymore. So they'll either go, the salt and pepper hair, black guy, it's been here the longest. They're like, okay, hold on. So if you can do that, that makes it really easier for people to have someone to talk to, because they can always go, is this person still here? And they go, sure, hold on. And then because you remember their stories, they're able to be like, so let me tell you what happened. And then you're like, did
because
you try what I said?
they need some confidence.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I'm Blake Farmer. This is Nashville. We're with Dwayne Jenkins of Nashville Cares and Nashville Black Pride. It's not just coming out as gay later in life. For a few, it can even be a complete transition, a gendered transition. And that's the story of our next guest, who waited more than half a century to come out into full expression of herself. And where Ginger Cutrell came out may surprise you. But we meet her at a Murfreesboro steakhouse.
Alrighty, have y'all had enough time with the menu?
I want the 6-ounce flows filet. I would like to substitute the French onion soup for the... My name is Ginger Cutrell. I live in Manchester, Tennessee. I've been around the sun 78 times. I refuse to say I'm 79 because I'd rather do that. I've actually came out in 2022 after my wife passed away. So technically I'm still a baby, but I am now legally, socially, and medically a woman. I've always been a woman, mentally, who was raised as a man, and I'm learning to be a lady.
Ginger is my friend. Ginger comes in and sees me every once in a while, and we just kind of hit it off from the very beginning, I think. We just talked. My name's Jamie Childers. I'm a manager at Longhorn Steakhouse, where we value diversity, and we do, and I value you, my love.
I totally believe that. One of the interesting things is that I'll sit down and she'll come looking for me. And that makes me feel so valued as a customer.
She's my guest here. She's not a customer, she is my guest. We had a very open and honest conversation one time where I asked her questions, and she was so honest with me, and I appreciated that so much. And I was always worried about offending her, and she assured me that I wasn't, that my curiosity was natural, and I appreciated that. And thank you.
One of the things that I really love doing is just correcting the misinformation that so many people have. You know, we're just men and women trying to be ourselves, and the more I can counter that information, the happier it makes me. After a 46-year marriage, my wife got a very severe illness. I had to put her in the nursing home. I watched her die for a year and a half. When she passed away, I went to grief share at our church. And I've been going to this church for over 20 years. Trinity Lutheran in Tullahoma, Tennessee. And it's a 6 weeks program. And one of the points that was made was sometimes you have to make a new identity. You have to recognize change is necessary and just walk right through it. It suddenly dawned on me, and it's like God talking to me. It's a really weird feeling. I heard this voice echoing, or just a thought. I said, I got to do this now. And so the ladies that were around me, and there was a total of 6, I said, I'm coming out to you, and I think I'm going to transition to a woman. I got a lot of, well, that's really cool. Good for you. It's surprising, but we're happy for you. And got a couple of blank stares and a couple of glares. The funny thing is that they have become some of my best friends. So they started recognizing changes is not always a bad thing. About a month later, I made a decision. I'm going to come out to my entire church. If I'm going to bite the bullet, I'm going to really do it right. And I can still remember to this day because it was in June, bright sunshine, late Sunday morning. I pulled into the church parking lot. Services were already starting. I'm in the parking lot in a dress as Ginger. And my knees were shaking, literally. And as I walked in through the door, a lot of heads swiveled. Eyes opened up, shocked. I went and sat down. And my pastor knew what was going to happen. I'd been talking to him about it. And after service, I had a tremendous number of people walk up and say, congratulations, we're happy for you. Be the best person you can be. I got a lot of hugs. I got a lot of smiles. Again, I got several glares because being in the South, it's very conservative. Again, the funny thing is that most of the people that glared at me have become friends. We talk regularly at church. One person that still won't talk to me. I think it's in part because she was one of my wife's best friends. I transitioned, and she had a hard time accepting that.
That's Ginger Cuttrell, who will join us in the studio after a quick break. Dwayne Jenkins is also sticking around. Hope you will too, as we talk about coming out in NextAge Season 2. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Press Forward at the Community Foundation of Middle Tennessee, with a short survey asking residents how they receive local information, from school updates to severe weather alerts. Details at pressforwardmidtn.news. And Amazon, proud sponsor of WPLN's daily show, This Is Nashville, engaging our differences so we can discover our unity. More on Amazon's community work at aboutamazon.com. And the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute at Vanderbilt University, offering intellectual courses for adults over 50. Learn more about the wide-ranging topics and full curriculum at vanderbilt.edu/OLLI.
I'm Jeremy Hobson. The war in Iran will have many effects, seen and unseen. One of them will be a challenge the U.S. military has long faced, the lasting toll of war on those who serve. Mental health and suicide remain urgent concerns for service members and veterans. So what can be done to better support members of our military during and after battle? A special edition of The Middle from Kenosha, Wisconsin, next time.
Tonight at 8 on 90.3 WPLN News.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. Young people may not talk as much these days about coming out, but if you lived as a straight person with a spouse and kids, you're going to have some explaining to do. Call it coming out, call it something else. We heard a bit of Ginger Cutrell's story. She joined us now in the studio along with Dwayne Jenkins of Nashville Cares. Dwayne, thanks for not running out the door. And,
Absolutely not.
And Ginger, welcome in.
Thank you so much. I love being here.
So you're from Coffee County, Manchester.
Yes.
And I think, who am I to speak for the queer community of Middle Tennessee? But I get the sense, as somebody who grew up in East Nashville, people kind of think, the further you get from East Nashville, the more likely you are to encounter hostility of some kind, let's say. What have you found, though?
I have surprisingly found very little opposition.
Yeah.
There's so much on the news about how evil we are as a community, and yet I've had very few bad interactions. People have been very accepting. Coffee County really surprises me because we have a very large LGBTQ community there that's very active now, getting more active. And there's a lot of more transgender people there than I thought. It's very surprising.
That you're saying you didn't notice either.
I didn't. No. Short story, real quick. I was recovering from my bottom surgery, my gender confirmation surgery, and I couldn't do anything. The mail delivery person actually would bring packages and mail to my door. Mm-hmm. And it turns out, and we had a little conversation one morning, her brother had transitioned to female. Totally out of the air, just random selection. So we're more out there than what people think.
Wow, your own postman had a family member.
Yes.
Wow, Dwayne, I wonder what you've seen in terms of just kind of acceptance across the board in the queer community. Like, is there as much hostility as you might be made to believe by the media?
No.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't just say it just like that. No. Just like Ginger said, I mean, it's really depending upon the community that you're in.
Yeah.
But for the most part, everyone is still accepting. When an outside force, let's say, tries to come in and break up the letters, that's when, we seem to bond together to go, no. It's the
when
L.
you say
it's
letters, you're saying LGBT because being trans, being gay, very very different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
they are,
okay.
but still, people are sort of used to the LGBTQ plus.
Yeah.
Acronyms, and then the only pushback that you somehow can get, depending upon who you speak to, are the additional. Of the letters, because then people start to make fun of it and all of that. But again, it's still, when you're talking about the community, within the community, we're still going to support one another.
Well, and I wonder if it's even more, if like Ginger, if it's face to face. It's one thing to sort of the idea of transgender people, and then you meet Ginger and you think, okay, well, I'm fine with Ginger, but this whole thing is getting out of hand. You know what I'm saying? Do you have any conversations like that?
I have fairly often, and I think one of the things that happens is there's an assumption that we're evil. Yeah, that's the way we're painted by the lawyers, or not the lawyers, but the legislature. Mm-hmm. I wonder sometimes how many transgender people our legislators have actually talked to.
Yeah.
I suspect none. And so they really don't know us as a face-to-face. And that's so important, especially when you're marginalized, you're on the edges. We're trained black or white. People are trained no gray. And the reality is that nature, God, totally loves variety. Mm. Look at our trees, our fishes, our people, black, white, okay?
And even black, white, of course, that's like we don't really mean black and white.
No, we don't. You're right, because there's shades of gray in there.
Yeah, about as many shades as you could imagine. Why was it important to you to have surgery so late in life?
Really, honestly and truly, I hadn't planned on it. Mm-hmm. I was happy with just living as a woman. I had breast augmentation procedure. That was 80% of my dysphoria. And I hadn't planned on transitioning fully until I got to thinking about something. And this is false thinking, but it was my brain telling me to do something. If I'm ever injured, if God forbid I'm arrested for something, I'm going to get thrown into the men's ward. If I'm in a nursing home, it'll be the men's ward because I have male genitalia down there. Mm-hmm. And I said, I want to minimize that. And that my brain said, well, why don't you go ahead and do the bottom surgery and you'll look more like a woman and you'll be less likely to get into trouble.
Wow.
And so that was my first thought, okay? But the reality is that when I woke up after my surgery, I felt so complete. I felt so natural. I didn't even miss that body part that was gone. Mm. Had a couple of twinges that first couple of days. Muscle memory is a weird thing.
Oh, is this like kind of a phantom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a phantom twinge, okay? You can almost feel like a little erection coming up, okay? But it wasn't there.
Interesting.
But I have never felt so complete since I fully transitioned.
Wow. We'll get back to some of that, but I want to bring in another guest. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer with Ginger Cottrell. Dwayne Jenkins is in here as well. Reminder, we're streaming video at youtube.com/@WPLN. If you want to give Ginger a shout-out, it's a great place to do it right there in the chat. Which, by the way, Dwayne, you got a shout-out here. I'm a client of Nashville Cares, which does great things for me and doesn't make me feel bad. Well, I guess that's saying something. Thanks, Nasa Homie. So, Anne-Marie Zanzel is a coach who guides clients through coming out, sexual identity, transitions, and what she calls the messy middle, in between and beyond. She also has her own story that we'll get some of. Welcome, Anne-Marie.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so you've had your own coming out story here. Can you kind of help us see that? Take us there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to give you the Reader's Digest version, and with the people in the room, it is appropriate because we know what Reader's Digest is.
Are you giving the age? You're saying a lot of shade being thrown in here.
So I am somebody that came out later in life. I was married for 27 years to my now ex-husband. We have 4 kids together. When I came out, they were 12 to 24. They are now 24 to 36. And when women come out later in life, they come out all different kinds of ways. Yeah. So some of them fall in love with somebody for the first time and have never, ever thought that they were gay.
Truly?
Truly. Never, ever, ever thought that they were gay. I was somebody that was always aware of it, but because I was raised very conservatively, religiously, when that thought crossed my mind and I thought about exploring it, and my friends sort of shut me down. I was like, well, I should get married and have babies. And so that's what I did.
Well, you say before you got married to your ex-husband, you even had the thought.
Yes, but it was also 1987. It was in the middle of the AIDS crisis. And the homophobia was, unless you lived through it, you don't understand what the homophobia was like then.
Well, I mean, that would have been when I was being raised, and it was just like there was not much worse you could imagine. Like, I hope I'm not gay.
Well, yeah, but what I didn't know is the lesbians were the least likely to get HIV.
So there's that.
But it was something I was aware of, and then when I was raising my family, I didn't think about it for years. Yeah. A lot of women don't.
So it wasn't a thing that was hanging over you,
No.
and you're sort of you're tortured by.
No, not at all. And I want to push back on you.
Please.
You said something about living a lie.
Yeah.
It's not a lie.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, it's for a lot of people. It takes a long time for them to acknowledge that they are not straight, and that's how I start with my clients. We start with maybe I'm not straight. And then as somebody when somebody's newly coming out, they go through every letter of the alphabet mafia to determine who they are, right? So for me, I was somebody that never, when I put it away, didn't think about it, very happy, relatively happy marriage and stuff like that. And then when I was about 42 years old, I read an article in Oprah Winfrey magazine, which talked about the fluidity of women's sexuality. And all of a sudden, I had a language that I didn't have before. And I told my then 16-year-old daughter, hey, if something ever happens to Dad and I, don't be surprised if I end up with a woman. She was the first person I ever came out to, and she has no memory of this conversation.
I was gonna say, wow.
Like a typical teenager, she has no memory. She's like, Mom, I'm sorry, I don't remember that conversation. So anyway, that took me on a 10-year, very long journey. I came out 3 weeks after I was ordained. So I was ordained in the United Church of Christ. When I got ordained, my minister friend said to me, something's going to happen. Just going to let you know something's going to happen. And I was like, oh, okay. So 3 weeks later, I had a moment with a hospice patient, because I was working as a hospice chaplain for about 7 years then, where she was waiting for something her whole life. She wasn't gay. But when she said that to me, that really rocked something inside of me. So when I went back into therapy, I told my therapist that. And she said to me, Anne-Marie, what are you waiting for? And I said, I think I'm gay. And that was the third time I came out. And I knew, like, I had a literal life flash before my eyes. And I thought of all the, 50 times that I had tried to do this or tried to pursue this. And then when I said that, I knew it was for real that time. And I'll just say that I started crying. I said, this is going to open up a Pandora's box. And she said, no, it doesn't have to. And I'm always so glad that she lied to me that night.
What did this mean for your life?
It changed everything. Absolutely everything. Looking at my ordination pictures is the last time my 4 children and my ex-husband and I was in my robes and everything, were pictured in front of this lovely New England church. So I had to start figuring this out. And so why I ended up in Nashville is that a woman from Nashville, her name is Andrea Hewitt, and she started a Facebook page for women coming out later in life. She doesn't do that anymore. She owns a doula agency in East Nashville. But she started this Facebook page. And so when I Googled late in life lesbian, that's what I did differently this time. Okay. Her blog popped up. Only thing there then. Absolutely only thing there then. And on the very bottom of the blog, it said, I have a Facebook group. And like every late in life person, I waited 3 months. And I contacted her. And she had that group. And I met my wife in that group. So that's how I ended up in Nashville.
Well, we're going to get a little more of this story. Need to take a break and might as well throw some YouTube praise out here. Spree Star says, Ginger, I think you're so beautiful, for one. And Dwayne, very hot, too. I assume he's talking about the shirt. And, we're going to come back with our guests here and talk a little bit about some of the religious trauma that can hang in and be a big factor here, and how all of us can be more supportive, including using language like living a lie. We'll be talking about how we can all be more supportive for these NextAge transitions. Stay with us. This is Nashville.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners. And Hands On, powered by United Way of Greater Nashville, serving 9 counties across Middle Tennessee. Volunteer information at handson.unitedwaygreaternashville.org. And Alliance Bernstein. Since 2019, employees have impacted our community by giving more than 5,000 hours of volunteerism in Middle Tennessee. AllianceBernstein.com. Alliance Bernstein is not affiliated with National Public Radio. And Wildwood Resort, an all-inclusive destination for executive retreats and team gatherings near Nashville on Cordell Hall Lake, with meeting spaces, waterfront lodging, and modern amenities. More at visitwildwood.com.
Behind every Instagram ad, commercial, or TV trailer that you see, there is a fierce battle going on for what song gets to play in the background. Music Sync is one of the last places where independent artists can still make money, but it is an increasingly crowded field. Meet the Sync Master, Katie Jellin, who's fighting to get their songs placed. She's the subject of our newest episode of Music Citizens. Listen to Music Citizens anywhere you get your podcasts.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. There are some things we can all identify with and support each other in as we age and see intimacy, romance in our bodies changing, but a transition in our own sexuality or even our gender in later years can be very isolating because coming out often means losing a lot of your relationships, maybe most of them, and at least permanently changing them. Anne-Marie Zanzel coaches people through this messy middle. She's been there herself. Ginger Cuttrell has too, going from married with kids to being a trans woman in her 70s. And Dwayne Jenkins of Nashville Cares has seen a lot. Reminder, we're streaming video at youtube.com/@WPLN. Anne-Marie, how much did religious guilt play into your delay in coming out? I mean, obviously you were an ordained minister, United Churches of Christ, very different from Church of Christ, which
Right.
I know better. But you grew up rather conservative.
I grew up Catholic. So I went up, I grew up in, I went to Catholic school. It was a big part of my life, actually. I've done a lot of writing and thinking about this. So my home was chaotic as a child. So the church and school provided order. It provided safety. I knew what was going to happen when I went to church, so it was, especially Catholic, because it's very liturgical. And so that was really wonderful. But as a woman, going to a Catholic church or a conservative faith tradition, I was taught that my needs came last and that my job was to take care of everybody else. So when I work with people coming out later in life, I often have to focus on what they've been taught as a woman before I can even get to the gay stuff.
Interesting.
Because they've been taught as women, especially women in conservative faith traditions, to put themselves last, to take care of their husbands. And especially in very conservative faith traditions, it goes God, husband, wife. And so they just are not used to thinking of themselves and their own needs.
Ginger, I wonder if you can identify with any of this. Obviously, you've been very involved with your Lutheran church in Tullahoma. I don't know what your background was before that, but would your own Christian religion been preventing you from kind of living in this full expression of yourself?
Actually, no, because growing up, I was largely atheist or agnostic.
Really?
I really never had a deep religious commitment. I went to church with my wife because she did religiously. Okay, so unity. But as I transitioned, some things have changed. I'm going to do a real quick short story, if I might. I had first come out to the church, and I became a member of what's called Women of the ELCA. It's a National Lutheran Evangelical Lutheran Church in America group. I was approached. Ginger, we would like to recommend you get on the board of our national organization. And I said, okay, that's kind of a strange thought. It's out of the blue, but okay. So she sent me the application, and I'm filling it out. And karma or God, I don't know. I'm leaning out more towards God, however shape he has or she has. But I was filling out the application. I wanted to talk to one of the past ministers who had been on the board. What am I getting involved in? I filled out the application on my phone. I was talking to her on my computer. Phone call comes in, and is a spam. It was identified as spam, and I said, "Oh darn!" So what do you do when you get a spam call? Right? You reach up and you hit the hang up. I didn't even want to answer it, and I hit that hang up button, and I hit it twice, just to make sure the darn call went away. Okay, it went away, and another sign popped up on my phone that said, "Application submitted." I had hit the hang up and the submit button simultaneously, and God said, "I got you."
An incidental application.
Yep. So I was elected. About 3 months later, I was elected to the national board. I am one of 16 board members on the national board of the women of the ELCA.
Yeah.
And because of that, I have been able to interact with women across the country and explain to them, hey, we are just people trying to be our best possible self.
Yeah.
And that, I love seeing the eyes open. I love seeing I open myself up. I have no filters. Ask me any question. You've got me.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dwayne, how often do you see, for folks who are feeling like they essentially, hear the word a ton anymore, but are living a closeted life, like, how often is religion kind of the blocker, not just that there are other relationships at stake?
For the most part, especially within, let's say, the populations that I'm specifically working with, the Black and brown populations, you see that a lot.
Yeah.
Where because of their, religious beliefs or their church background, they sort of hesitate on coming out and doing all of things. But there's been some advancements of people being able to have some accountability of who they are within their family dynamic. And, as I was listening to you mention where things are sort of listed, most of, especially,
like the hierarchy you're saying, the hierarchy, of God, husband, wife. Yeah.
Even as a single person, but most, let's say, of the African-American males, for the ones that I sort of deal with a lot, they're the caregivers. There's the one that people go to all of the time. If there's a financial need, if there's something, if somebody's kids need to be taken, they're doing all of that. And then they just so happen to be queer.
Oh.
And so it's a different feeling because it's like, I do all this all anyway. I take care of mama, may take care of, the kids and some of the other things. And all I have is this, which may be big, but if you take me out of the equation, the family dynamic is going to, sort of fall apart because I'm the sort of the higher up on the thing, which I've found a lot of times with people. It's like, you may not have an issue depending on what is discussed with that. And so many of the times I always try to make sure that the person who is having an issue coming out really deals with what the actual issue is. Is it the loss of a relationship that you think you're going to get between, the interactions between parents or friends? Is it a financial thing? Of course, if you're young, you don't want to be kicked out. So there's other things that you have to really work on. And
you're saying that they're almost concerned. They are provider and caregiver, and that if they come out, they might be removing themselves, and it kind of a family system of some kind ends up dissolving.
They would think. They would
think that.
They would think that, but it hasn't happened to many of the ones that have done that.
Yeah, I want to add just a couple of things to your conversation.
Sure.
I painted the picture of my religious experience being wonderful. That's not true of much of the community, because so many are kicked out, especially the trans community. The parents can't accept it. I've known a lot of friends who have been kicked out of their church. Their family has kicked them out. Their family has forced them to go through conversion therapy, which is like brainwashing. It's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I want to add too is there's a misconception that if you're trans, you're also gay. And the reality is that being gay or lesbian and your gender identity are totally different parts of the psyche.
Mm-hmm.
Gender identity is in the brain. Sexual orientation is between the legs.
Mm.
And people get so confused that makes no sense to them because you're raised from a child, black or white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Ginger Cuttrell. We also have Dwayne Jenkins and Anne-Marie Zansel in the room. Anne-Marie, you coach people through this, which I imagine means you get all kinds of stories. I wonder what you hear about people around folks who might be coming out later in life. What are people doing that is good about supporting people? Like what are people getting right about supporting those who are kind of transitioning?
So I want to share a story. My wife talks about the full embrace and the half embrace. So the half embrace is when you're coming out later in life and you're a man or you're a woman. Doesn't matter if you're trans or you're coming out gay or lesbian or bi or pan. And you tell somebody, oh, I just want to tell you what's going on. And the first thing they say is, how's your husband? How's your wife? How's your kids? And really, you're so used to that as a married person, you don't really think about it too much. But what happened to me is I had my son at the time was like 12 or 13 and his youth pastor. So I told Emily what was going on. And I said, I was coming out. And Emily said to me, oh my God, Anne-Marie, I am so happy and excited for you that you figured that out. And I got a full embrace. And now I can tell the difference when somebody is giving me a full embrace and when somebody is giving me a half embrace. And as a lesbian and Dwayne, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Jane will tell you, gay people come out all the time. Yeah. We don't just come out once and it's over.
Right.
We literally come out every time I say my wife.
I see.
I assess the situation and say to myself, is it okay that I say my wife at this moment?
Or just keep it to yourself.
Or just I'm like an in-your-face kind of girl, so I'll say my wife.
Got it.
Because I just want to do that. But so when somebody tells you that they're thinking about this or they're thinking they might be gay, just say, I love you. Thank you for telling me. How can I support you? Maybe at some point they'll start talking about their husbands and kids, but coming out as queer has nothing to do with who you're married to. It has nothing to do with your children, with your faith community, with your family. It has to do with who you are as a human being.
And I imagine people are well-meaning when they ask about the family because it's like, well, I care about you, I care about your family. But you're saying in this moment, it's an individual.
Right. And even though a lot of times people know us as members of a family and stuff like that, my queerness has nothing to do with my ex-husband. It just has nothing to do with him. And it has nothing to do with my children. I love my children. I'm a very attentive mother. But my being gay has nothing to do with my family.
Ginger, could you have imagined doing this while your wife was alive?
Absolutely not. Now, I did cross-dress, or I dressed on the road because I had a job that let me travel.
Mm-hmm. And she knew that?
No.
Okay.
She found out, well, we've been married for going on 30 years. Yeah. Not quite that many. She found out. We had some violent arguments. And I promised her that I wouldn't dress anymore and that she would never see me. And I have never known of any transgender person who has stopped dressing, stopped being themselves. This, I'm going to use an example real quick of what it means to be, why we transition. Number one, medically, our brains are actually more aligned to the gender that we identify with than one we're assigned with at birth. Mm-hmm. Medically, MRIs have shown that. Now, I want to do a real quick example. What's the worst earworm you can think of? What song strikes in your head? The one I always think of is It's a Small World. Okay. Once you hear that, it's stuck in your brain for the next hours. Now, what if It's a Small World replayed constantly in your brain every day? You get up and you hear that constantly. Eventually, you've got to do something to fix the problem.
I see. And
part of that is, for us, we transition.
Yeah.
We have a 98% success rate. People that transition, 98% of them say that's the best thing I ever did. It was the right medication to take.
I'm going to piggyback on what Ginger said. We have a saying in the later in life community, straight girls don't lie awake at night wondering if they're gay. And it's true. When somebody said that to me, I was like, what? I thought everybody lied awake at night wondering if they were gay. And I had a client who was a take charge kind of woman, and she's like, I'm going to go survey my straight friends. And so she went and surveyed all her straight friends. Nobody thought about it. So it's like an earworm, right? You're laying awake at night wondering if you're gay. So if that's something that keeps coming back to you over and over again, it is okay to pay attention.
Absolutely.
It is just okay to pay attention. Doesn't mean you have to come out. Doesn't mean you have to leave your husband if you're really,
Right.
But just pay attention. Maybe do some research, do some reading, listen to some podcasts. There's lots of people producing content now.
Well, Dwayne, and it sounds like even in your community that's often focused on, keeping people safe, like there's a way to embrace without them having to blow up all of their relationships.
Absolutely. And also, now that we are in the age of social media, that's one of the other places where you can find some information, but you don't have to do anything that's detrimental. So if you're struggling or if you're having some kind of setbacks with yourself to going, I'm not sure where I fall on the spectrum, all we ask is that people don't go and say something evil on some pages because of your battle. Your battle doesn't have to be someone else's battle. So you can get on the pages, look and do your research, but don't enter anything like, oh, you're this or that, knowing that you are also what you're talking
Quick
about.
point.
And that's what happened with the later in life community. There's lots of people like me out there, and they started creating, and people realized they're not alone.
That's beautiful. A beautiful place to end. I've learned a lot today. Anne-Marie Zanzel, who coaches people, Ginger Cutrell, who's been right there, and Dwayne Jenkins of Nashville Cares. Thank you for sharing your stories and your expertise.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. NextAge Season 2 examines intimacy as we age. It's made possible in part by the West End Home Foundation, advancing aging and dignity and strengthening communities. Support also comes from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. Today's episode was produced by Tasha A.F. Limley. Liv Lombardi's making us sound and look good. Natasha Sinyanovich is our contributing editor on NextAge Season 2. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.
Hey, I'm Ryan Van Velzer, managing editor of a new collaboration of 7 public media stations spread across Kentucky, Tennessee,